100 species of fish live in it, 100 species of birds live around it, and 6 million people fly over it every year. Welcome to Belfast Lough. Well, I've now reached the halfway point in my journey right around Belfast Lough, uncovering its secrets and its stories. I'm in the centre of Belfast. This week, I'll be heading east from the city, past the shipyard and Victoria Park, towards Knocknagonie. Along the way, I meet the only local person who's actually seen the wreck of the Titanic. I catch up with some of Ireland's fastest men and women on water, and I discover the most comfortable place you could imagine for watching the birds go by. You know, all this regeneration along the waterfront means that I guess we're now face to face with the river that we turned our backs on for years. There used to be factories and coal quays here. This is a lot better though, isn't it? One man who regularly plies his trade on the Lough and up the River Lagan, bringing the past alive for his passengers, is Derek Booker, skipper of the Lagan Boat Company's Joyce 2.
Well, it started about 5 years ago, a Lagan Boat Company, and I thought one day I was walking over the bridge and I just thought to myself, you know, it seems a shame all the work they've done on this river. The Lagan said they've done such a lovely job, there's no boats on it, you know, what's a river without boats? And I thought, well, I could do that, I could chug up and down there rightly every day, and took it from there. These 3 steam cranes, the last in Belfast Harbour of many that used to be here, over 100 years old. They all actually worked on the Titanic.
One way or another, the Titanic is always a talking point on Derek's tours.
Just on the last tour we were on there with a guy from England whose cousin was the first officer on the Titanic. His granny's first cousin. He left his details in the book there, you know. So every trip is different. You meet people from all over, people who worked on, our grandfathers worked on ships. And not, you know, it's not all just about Titanic. They built nearly 1,800 vessels. Many other famous vessels. Titanic's the catch, but it's not the history by any means. Some of them actually floated.
This isn't just a job for Derek. Belfast Lough and the Lagan have become his passion.
There's a multitude of wildlife. I've seen salmon jumping up the weir quite rightly, trout up round here. We've seen otters occasionally here. I often see the seals come up here. The reed beds here planted by Lagan side are doing a very good job in the river. Phlagmites, they actually filter the water as the water goes through them. It filters out the chemicals and whatever toxins in the water. The air bubbles come up, part of the new aeration system that's just been laid in at the moment, which is vitally important in the river. It mixes the salt water and the fresh water together because it's a tidal river, puts oxygen in the water, and this has been really successful in bringing the fish back, particularly the salmon, which for 200 years hadn't been in the river. And over the last 7 years we're coming up in even greater numbers, over 9 species of fish. Passing under the King's Bridge here, and it's a small claim to fame. Not a very nice looking bridge, but it's got the first reinforced concrete bridge ever to be built in Ireland, built in 1910. It did suffer a bit of damage. You see in the war, the Americans had a base on the west side here, took some heavy artillery across it and cracked it and stuff a bit, but it's still quite a fine bridge when it's lit up at night. Southview cottages here, some of the oldest cottages on the River Lagan, nearly 200 years old. The end one, the toll cottage from Downpatrick to Belfast at one time, and it's across the river from the east here on low tide at a causeway. They'd pay their toll at the end cottage and go up the little hill, Horsey Hill, down into Belfast.
Horses were actually an everyday sight along the Lagan for years, in the days when barges plied their trade along here.
Cormac Lough, the first lough in the Lagan navigation, one of 26 loughs that ran from here to Lough. This is where the barges would have come through tug drawn up to there, horse drawn from here all the way up to Lough. Journey sometimes up to 10 days in them days, bringing all sorts of materials up, sand, gravel coming back down from Lough, up to 100,000 tonnes a week going up and down this river at one time in flat bottom barges. I think the last one sailed up in about 1940 or so, and then they took the weir walls away in the 60s. The British Army knocked them down to make safe navigation.
The improvements to the river have brought lots of benefits, even a brand new event, a boat race between Queen's University and Trinity. Not quite Oxford and Cambridge yet, but who knows about future years. Trinity won the inaugural event. I'll be back to see Queen's take the next one.
Like a boat company?
Back at the boat company, Earl Walsh. He's home after years living away, convinced by his best mate, Derek Booker.
I'll hear from you soon. Thank you. It's almost impossible to be around the man when he's talking about boats and maritime things and not get involved and not have that rub off you. Frankly, when I came here to get involved in the boat company, I just saw it as, you know, a business opportunity for my twilight years and something that would be nice, a little dawdle up and down the river and whatever, you know. But I quickly became infected by his passion, and there's no other word to describe it, for all things maritime.
This is Earl's other life, one the boat company customers never even guess. In fact, for years he's travelled the world as a musician.
Ended up recording an album down in Dave Gilmour's boat, of Dave Gilmour of Pink Floyd fame. Met some fantastic musicians in London, all way above my level of ability, I have to add. But yeah, I'd recorded an album in Nashville, which was quite an experience, a 7-day wonder. Ended up playing with guys from Steve Earle's band, and I was a bit awestruck by the whole deal, you know. But I was fairly satisfied with what came out of it. It was good. It was a good experience. I'd love to do it again. Music-wise, keep my hand, and I go off to Norway once a year and do sort of the little festivals on my own, you know, as an acoustic thing, which is fantastic. Last year I got lifted and laid as if I was Mick Jagger, private airplanes and helicopters. I said, in fact, said to the guy who arranged it all, I said, I feel like Mick Jagger, this is great. And he said, what, all old and wrinkly?
These old steam cranes were used to build the Titanic, and David Livingstone can remember them working right up to the 1960s, puffing ice and showering sparks. He's a naval architect who worked for Harland and Wolff, but you'd never guess what his secret is.
Well, I reckon I'm the only person in Northern Ireland who has actually visited Titanic, and I suppose I have the distinction of having been on Titanic's bridge and been in the engine room.
What on earth did it feel like to actually see the Titanic?
You don't really have time for emotion. The 6 or 7 hours that you spend in the bottom and the other hour and a half that you spend both going down and coming back up again, it just passes in a moment. I'm extremely interested in the people who designed the ship, the people who built the ship. Then when you think of course, of the people who operated the ship, people like the stokers, the coal trimmers, people who worked in really horrendous conditions, maybe temperatures of 140 degrees in quite dark, dangerous, dirty conditions. Of course, none of them survived, none of them came out of the engine room.
Even before the Titanic, factories and the pollution of former generations had brought an end to the once teeming fish life in the river. But all that's been changing over the past few years. Now salmon and other fish are regularly caught. But to tell the story, we have to go a few miles upstream to the headwaters of the Lough. And just what is Robert Russell doing? Watering the river?
This river here is the River Arnott, which is a small stream which flows into the Lough at Lisburn. And it's a good example of what salmon like. High up in the headwaters, small fast-flowing streams where the young fish grow up and have lots of individual territories, lots of stones and insects to feed on and places to hide. And they'll spend 2 years here, after which they will then grow into a small silvery fish about 4 or 6 inches long and migrate down towards the sea and head out into the open sea, and they will go as far as the Faroe Islands and the North Atlantic before coming back as adult salmon, which we all know is the fish we see on the fishmonger slab at 5-6 pounds in weight and bright and silver and pink fleshed and good to eat. We'll come back here in August after we've planted fish in the spring and see how well they've done with a fishing technique which electrically stuns them so we can count them, but it doesn't harm them. 16.3. Then we'll also count them on their way out as they're heading out to sea after 2 years old, further down the river in a fish trap. And we'll also count them a third time on their way back up as adult fish, where we have video counting systems on weirs and other electronic counting systems on fish passes. Given the sorts of changes that are happening in the countryside with the changes to agricultural policy and land management, a lot of the sort of remaining pressures which are there, which are basically due to intensive farming, should become in time less and less common. So I would hope that within a decade we might see a situation where salmon can support themselves in the river.
Well, if the salmon have any sense, they'll be lying low at this time of the year when the Irish Jet Ski Championships take place. This is one of many events the rejuvenated river is attracting. You don't have to be a jet ski freak to get out on the Lough these days. You can try lots of activities at the Lough Water Sports Centre.
Lough Water Sports is a registered company with charitable status. It was set up in 1996 as a joint initiative between Bryson House, the charity, and the Ulster branch of the Irish Amateur Rowing Association. Today we're running a dragon boat event for a local charity, Sergeant Cancer Care. It's a fundraising event in which they have got together a number of teams, all of which have been sponsored, and they're competing against each other to raise money for the charity.
I'm the senior instructor here at Lough Water Sports. We deal with disadvantaged kids and a lot of corporate groups now. There's a lot of adults come into the centre. They can gain qualifications here at the centre and develop their CVs and enjoy the sports.
Well, it's stinking. You wouldn't want to fall into that water, would you?
Well, I've been in a fair few times and I haven't turned green yet. Certainly it's a lot cleaner than it used to be. The water has been dredged recently, which has helped with the cleanliness, and it's made it a lot healthier for us and a lot healthier for the people on the water, so people can enjoy the water throughout in all the different sports.
Sitting now where the old cold quay used to be, the Odyssey. Detractors said it would be a hopeless white elephant, but the critics have been forced to eat their words.
We've over 4 million people coming a year, which is 2.5 times the population of Northern Ireland. And we have tourists coming from all over the world. We've got people coming over for hen nights, stag nights, come to see the Giants play against our local team, come to see concerts that don't exist anywhere else in Ireland, in fact. So we had the biggest indoor concert in the arena not so long ago with Oasis played, and we had 25% of people came from outside Northern Ireland. It's fantastic.
Where do all these people come from?
We're attracting people who were going to other establishments in Belfast. But having said that, there are so many people come to the arena in W5 that wouldn't have gone out. So clearly we're actually increasing the market share, and I think we're doing that to the tune of probably somewhere around 30 to 40%. This used to be an old coal jar, an old scrap heap, and it was depressing. Suddenly now, as we speak, there's probably 10,000 people in the place. If there was an arena event on, there'd be over 20,000, and during the day we're just thronged. So we've turned a derelict site. This is urban regeneration, really at the cutting edge.
And this is going to be the new cutting edge, the Titanic Quarter. Granted, it doesn't look like much now, but think about it. This is where the world's most famous ship was built. The good news, Titanic's legacy is going to be recognised. Massive development and radical change in this huge area.
Yeah, Titanic Quarter is about 180 acres, and to put that in regeneration terms, it's about twice the size of Lough Corporation's area. And what we're working on is a master plan for the area, and the master plan would have key principles of mixed use, extending the city centre, improving transport links into Titanic Quarter, and really bringing investment back to Belfast. We predict about £1.5 billion over the next 20 years. And of course the flip side to investment is job creation, and we anticipate up to 20,000 new jobs created during that period as well. And it's not just about building new buildings, it's about preserving the very best of the old, and the building in a sense behind us over there is the headquarters, the former headquarters of Harland & Wolff. That's a listed building and that will be retained. So it's important in a sense that the heritage of the past is respected in our development plans for the future. If we came back in 5 years' time, we'd find the development of the Abercorn Basin, high density residential development, all with river views and a very attractive marina. It's a real place of excitement right beside Odyssey. And then there'll be a start to the international Titanic project, themed on the Titanic, with a lot of commercial leisure, hotels, restaurants, commercial themed uses around it. And then business space. There's quite a lot of demand in Belfast for business space, and this is where we see a new quarter being established, linked back to Belfast by improved transport links, and the light rapid transit system helping to get people around the city and into Titanic Quarter.
Believe it or not, this was one of Belfast's biggest draws back in Queen Victoria's time. A public park had been built on Dargan Island, renamed Queen's Island, in honour of Victoria's visit here in 1849. Admission fees raised money for the hard-up Belfast General Hospital.
In 1851, they decided to build a conservatory on the island, and the people of Belfast very quickly called this conservatory the Crystal Palace, because the main one, the big one in London for the Great Exhibition, had been opened, and this little glass house here on this island became Belfast Crystal Palace. And inside it you had a fountain made by an Italian man who worked here called Nanette, and you had incubators with chicks hatching. You had examples of early electricity. There were also stalls and various events within the Crystal Palace. Also there were events outside. There were no other parks in Belfast that the working classes could use freely. Okay? The Botanic Gardens was a privately owned company, and it was only from, I think, 1878 or later in the 1870s that the working classes were allowed in on Saturday afternoons. So they didn't have anywhere else. So it really became the park for the working classes.
Now, another piece of history lies just beyond Queen's Island, the old warhorse HMS Caroline.
She was launched in 1914. She was the first of her class, and most significantly, she served at the Battle of Jutland in 1916, and in fact is the only survivor from that battle, and she's 90 years old this year, so she's a grand old lady, and we're very proud of her and proud that she's in Belfast. She came to Belfast in 1924 and has been here ever since.
Once you have taken your position, you mark it with an X.
The Sea Cadets regularly use Caroline for training, but its main purpose is as the local base for the Royal Naval Reserve.
She's the reserve centre for 120 reservists and a small staff of permanent RN personnel who administer the Royal Naval Reserve in Northern Ireland. We provide a corps of people who will serve with the Navy, their counterparts, in various parts of the world. And we've had people as far away as the Falklands, the United States. So we're very much akin to the Territorial Army in the way that we support the Navy. So we provide, as I say, about 120 people for them on a part-time basis. She is on the list of 100 historic ships throughout the United Kingdom, so she's a very significant historical artefact. But we think that Belfast in the long term would be her home if we could make it so.
Nestling under Samson and Goliath, a short distance away, is Victoria Park. Not the easiest place to find your way into, but well worth a visit. It did take rather a long time to construct.
The corporation got a surveyor out and his report was a bit damning. He said it was little more than a swamp, very little chance of making a public park here. Difficult to get at, difficult access, and the ground was very wet and marshy. But anyway, they persevered and they established access with help from the railway company and various people who sponsored it. And they were able to open the park in 1906. That was over 50 years since the first suggestion, so things didn't happen too quickly. But 100 years ago, wildlife wasn't a big concern. It wasn't high on the agenda, and public open space was to create space where people could come and walk, to be healthy, to have open space, because a lot of the houses then didn't have gardens. Of course, things have changed and lots of people do have gardens today, although there's a generation of apartments coming up without gardens, so maybe the thing will turn full circle and people will use the public parks again for walking the dog, for just casual relaxation, or indeed for football as well.
Robert has written a book on wildlife in Belfast and how birds and animals can comfortably live side by side with people.
And here in Victoria Park is a good example of that. Not only do we have water birds, the ducks and the coots and swans and geese, but we also get birds like herons coming in. You maybe see up to 20 herons at a time just standing. So it's a good place to come and you can get close to birds. That's important as well.
But you know, there's an even cosier place to watch the birds, the lagoon, just behind the city airport. Well, Stephanie, this is a new experience for me, and I'm actually quite ashamed of the fact that this is so close to where I work every day, and I had no idea it was even here.
I know Belfast Harbour Reserve is just a fantastic resource for everyone in Northern Ireland, and Belfast in particular, because as you know, the birds here, I mean, you've seen yourself the common terns here. You mean you'd be hard pressed getting such a good view of it without, having to go out on a boat, for instance. They do breed in Lough or Copeland Islands, but you'd have to take a boat down there, and you don't have to just drive your car right down here, and here it is on our doorstep, and it's in just such comfortable surrounding. I mean, look at this observation room. You'd get a cup of tea, you'd get the free use of binoculars and telescopes, and you just look out the window and they're there, meters, literally meters in front of you.
The shed duck, is that the baby?
Yes, those are the young.
I know there's a young guy over my shoulder here, but the majority of people come down here, they're all owl dolls.
Oh, no, not at all. It's not true. We have a great mix. No, a great mix of people. You've got families, you've got young children, you've got your grannies and granddads, but it's just brilliant. So it's a real family place because you can just bring anyone down here, and it's just so comfortable.
Somewhere I've driven past hundreds of times and always wondered about is the East Belfast Yacht Club. Now I know. Not only is it the only working class yacht club in the Lough, it's also the only one to build concrete boats.
We've been here since 1937, but the club's been founded since 1904, Mostly all the shipyard workers, when they're working over in the shipyard, maybe had a little boat. And so we have founded this here club, and we come over here and do the repairs and work at them, and just so everybody's friendly, and that's it.
So beyond the crack, there is some practical building down here. Concrete boat. Now,
yes, furrow cement.
I don't get this. Talk me through even how it happens.
A furrow cement boat, as you see one here, it's built on a gantry, and it's wire mesh, The rods are folded round, and the wire mesh, 8 layers of wire mesh, and it's all tied by hand. And then you get sand cement 2 to 1 with fondue, and you rub it in with your hands, and then you trowel it in, and it makes it like a basket, and it makes the hull. And then you water it for 28 days, and then cure it, and then you turn it over, and then you do the inside with a sand cement again. So you do. As you see, there's our boys got wooden boats, fiberglass boats, and if somebody's building a concrete one, we all chip in, we all muck in and give them a hand to plaster it.
And what's the thrill like when you actually do fix something up and get out there?
It's fantastic when you're out there fishing or sailing or whatever you're doing, you know, what you want your boat for, you know. There's boys bought boats and fixed them up and away sailing all around England, Scotland, everywhere from out of here, so it's great.
I'm just thinking of future development. I'm sure their boys would love this land, prime land,
well, they would.
Part of the city.
They would, yes, but I don't think so. We've been here that long, and there's none of us would like to move. You know, we're anywhere along the Lough. There is nowhere.
Alan Brown, retired, is building his boat here, not in cement, but steel. In fact, he built the sections in his garage, and he'll spend the next 2 years fitting her out and getting ready to sail off into the sunset.
The club has struggled for many years against all of the pressures that are on us, particularly respectfully from the airport. So it is quite unique. They're quite a good band of men, and when you need help, they pull together, and it's a wonderful little club. It's just...
Come on, though, Alan, there must be a bit of jealousy around here from the fellas and a bit of competitiveness.
There's probably a wee bit of green cheese when you've got a bigger boat than someone else. That's life.
Size is everything to the blokes down here.
Well, size matters.
Come fly with me, let's fly away.
It's pretty much a man's world in this little nautical corner of East Belfast, and the aviation world has tended to be dominated by men too. But it's changing, and changing at Belfast City Airport as much as anywhere, with a growing number of female pilots.
It started a long time ago in aviation. I actually started off as cabin crew with Dan Air in about 1983-84. And then, as I say, once I got into cabin crew, then I was introduced into the flight deck, and then that's where I decided that's what I want to do. At the moment, all our routes from Belfast are mostly just domestic routes, anything from Glasgow, Newcastle, Edinburgh, Leeds, the whole way south, Gatwick, Southampton and Bristol's, and then we do a trip at the moment to Bordeaux. That's our longest trip down in France. It's a nice route. Well, on a good day into Belfast Lough, it's really pretty. Obviously from the side I'm sitting on, I see the coast from Donaghadee, Bangor on that side, but on the right hand side it's absolutely stunning. If you come over the chimney at Carrickfergus and into Whitehead and all, you get really nice views of Carrickfergus Castle and the harbour and stuff. Very nice, Cave Hill and all. Very, very nice day. And you tend to then start looking out for spots you've been to and stuff. But on a nice day it's absolutely gorgeous, absolutely beautiful.
Well, Joan's nipping off to Bordeaux, and I'm packing up for this week. Next time, I head down the coast through Hollywood and Cultraw to Crawfordsburn. I'll be tripping the light fantastic at a tea dance, joining a bunch of people flying their kites, sampling a little military madness. And do you know what a zap cat is? It's got the world's biggest dry dock and a multi-million-pound business beneath its surface. Welcome to Belfast Lough. I've looked at it all my life. I've paddled in it as a child, but until now, I've never really known the half of what goes on in and around Belfast Lough. So I'm putting that to rights with a journey the whole way round the lough, from Blackhead to the Copeland Islands, to find its secrets. I've reached Hollywood now, and this week I'll be travelling along the coast from here to Cultraw, Helens Bay and Crawfordsburn. And on the way, I'll be tripping the Light Fantastic at an old-fashioned tea dance. Getting into all that jazz, catching up with a bunch of guys who are into military history, and coming a little bit too close for comfort to a raptor. Hollywood knows how to party. In fact, this party happens every year on May Day, because after all, this is Ireland's only town with a maypole. And trying to find out why, a little bit of my past has caught up with me. It's class this, actually. I need to show a little bit of respect for once in my life, because I've run into an old school teacher. You remember me vaguely too, don't you?
Vaguely, I remember you perfectly.
At the Royal Belfast Academical Institution, no less. And tell me this, how does Hollywood have a maypole?
The whole of this territory was given to a man called Sir James Hamilton by King James. Hamilton erected a maypole in the centre of the town, and we're jolly lucky there again, because a beautiful set of maps was made, watercolour maps. They're all down in Bangor Castle at the moment, and right in the middle of Hollywood there's the maypole, so that has definitely been there since 1625, and that maypole was the focal point for dancing and great celebrations, and we still do that on May Day here in Hollywood.
There's a lot about Hollywood's history I'd never realised. The town was the original seat of government in King John's time, and the priory at the end of the street here is the oldest building in North Down. It dates back to 642. My old teacher knows an awful lot about what's happened in Hollywood over the years.
This is the grave of the Poole family.
Just look here, it's just incredible, isn't it? Joseph, age 9, David, 8, Harry, 6, Margaret, 4, Jean, 2.
Yeah.
What happened?
The father was a corporal, Mary, his wife. And they came home from England and were billeted over here to the Palace Barracks. Apparently they were out enjoying themselves the first night, a Saturday night, and they left 5 children on their own in the flat in the Palace Barracks, and they were all gassed. The largest funeral ever in Hollywood. When they got the 2 girls, the little hands of the 2 girls were so firmly clasped together that the army doctor had to break their hands to get them apart, to put them in their coffins. And 5 little coffins came down behind the army band, and it says at the bottom of the grave there, "All called home together, our loss is heaven's gain." Quite tragic.
Gazing out from Hollywood recently, I've noticed a lot of strange-looking fishing boats in the lough. Nope, they're not trawlers, they're mussel dredgers, because there's a multi-million-pound business burgeoning from the seabed. In fact, nearly every last square metre of Belfast Lough is licensed out to companies from here, the Republic, even Wales, for growing mussels.
Okay, that's great.
Niall MacDonald's from the Centre for Marine Research at Queen's University. He's helping maximise the crop from the lough and studying ways of attracting the minute mussel seed.
The mussel industry is a relatively new one in Belfast Lough. It's probably only about 6 or 7 years old, and quite a large proportion of the lough seabed now is under licence to various companies which farm mussels there.
So where does this whole process start?
The seed is fished from seed beds which settle out in the Irish Sea. These are dredged under licence, and then the seed is brought back in and relayed onto these beds so that the seed is then belongs to those companies, and they will grow them over a period of 2, maybe slightly longer years, up to a size where they're ready for market. But it's quite substantial now. There could be anything in the range of sort of 10, 15, maybe even 20,000 tonnes of mussels currently on the seabed in various stages of development in Belfast Lough. These are mussel seed collector rigs. This is a material that's used in commercial mussel farming, usually for collecting mussel seed for rope farming. And it's simply deployed, dropping vertically in the water from long lines. And the seed settles onto this material. It's ideal material for mussels to settle on, and they simply grow up on this material. We're deploying these around Belfast Lough on a monthly basis over the settlement season, and retrieving old ones now from this site in Belfast Lough, and seeing what sort of mussel settlement is on them. You can see the seed mussel settlement all there. They're all about 2 mils, 3 mils in length. Quite a considerable settlement. Generally speaking, when they're abundant, they're in the water column anywhere, and when the time comes for them to settle, they'll find a suitable substrate to settle on, and no better thing than that material we've got in the water there.
And what happens to all these mussels?
Some of them are exported to the Republic, where there's a growing market, but most of the mussels head over to mainland Europe, Holland, France, Italy, Spain, those sort of places. They're the main markets for the mussels produced here.
Every second I live, I love you.
Here's something you don't see every day. Don't start me a tea dance. I thought this kind of thing died out years ago.
Hi, the dancers.
There's one question I'm dying to know already. Will we just cut to the chase? Where are the men around here, ladies?
Now you tell us,
Where
and we'll
are they?
go and get them. You tell us where they are and we'll go and get them.
I hear you've been looking. I hear there's a hunt on for a couple of men.
There is.
This lady here's ready to tell me she wants a snog this morning. I
She's
thought we were
all
coming
right.
to something rather sophisticated.
She's all right, she's a husband. All these good-looking
Know what
widows
she's
here, not a
snogging
man
for.
among us. So that's why we'll hang on to you while we've got you.
All of a sudden I'm shaking. What's the crack here? How long's this been going on?
15
years.
15
This
years.
club's been going on 15 years.
And not a man in 15 years.
Can we get beyond sex here, ladies, and start talking about the tea
Well,
party? for
well, I
goodness
think
sake?
we are beyond that anyway.
Right. I've never been more embarrassed in all my life. Hurry up, get to the end! What kind of dances happen around here then?
Old time, sequence, circle dancing, most.
And do you have to be a bit of a pro before you come down here? Or do you learn as you go along?
We have some lessons taught to us, and we have our Rowan comes and plays once a month.
What happens if you're born with 2 left feet? Come on, ladies, keep it going!
If you're born with 2 left feet, you just sit and listen to the music.
Hollywood isn't just famous for its festivities. On May Day, the Hollywood Jazz Festival has grown into a major international event with jazz and blues music to suit all tastes.
We bring in artists from America, from Canada, from Australia, and from continental Europe. That's been growing in recent years. There's some wonderful jazz musicians, many of whom were educated, if you like, by the Americans, and they bring their particular kind of jazz here, plus the best of British and the best of Irish, not forgetting local acts as well.
Well, it's held on the first full weekend in June each year. We're a bit concerned last year because that was our 13th. However, we're back for the 14th, and I think it's bigger and better than ever, both in numbers and in quality.
Now, for a bit of peace and quiet away from all that jazz, you could dander up the hills behind Hollywood to Redburn Country Park, once the site of a gracious home. Sadly, it's no more. It fell into disrepair and was demolished.
The Dunvilles were a very large whisky distilling family. Robert Grimshaw Dunville decided that he needed a new residence, and he built Redburn House, and it was a magnificent building in its heyday. It's about 120 acres of mainly mature beechwood, and is dissected with quite a lot of pathways for quite a pleasant walk. And it had a ballroom, many bedrooms, many reception rooms, stable, formal gardens. They kept about 68 hunters at one stage, so they were the socialite family of this area. Now, it is quite steep, but with that steepness you can actually, once you get to the top, have a fantastic view over the whole of Belfast Lough. Recently there was a large kite festival which was very popular. They also had a very large greenhouse, which in its day rivaled Kew. You know, they were up there with the top families in the UK.
Total bunch of oddballs. Bobby kept a leopard in the stable yard, zebras in the garden, and an ape in the house. And you can still see the pit where his pet bird, Bruno, lived. Violet was an outdoor girl who shot local cats.
Violet was a character in herself. She used to run around Hollywood in her black and yellow Rolls Royce. She also would have run around the estate, rumour has it, with a gun. And she tended to shoot any cat that she saw. And this was all because Bobby was breeding rabbits for his wife to make a coat. Now, the wife did say that it would have been easier to get into Belfast and buy one, but no, he wanted to make one from his homegrown rabbits.
Now, here's another of the events held in Redburn, an Art in the Park Family Activity Day. You know, this is one of the best spots there is to see over the lough, up here in the hills above Hollywood. But let's go now and meet a man who knows another great spot to view the lough, because he needs to. That's where he takes all his photographs from. Andrew, what has inspired you to be a photographer?
I think it's probably just where I live. I've just been blessed by fantastic scenery in the east of the city where I live, in Belfast Lough here, where we are at the moment. I don't go looking for photographs. I don't have the ability to make them happen, but if Mother Nature, you know, is with me, I'll certainly try and be there and capture it. Where we are, I have a particular fondness of this particular jetty here, or pier as some people call it, or also if you would go to Lough Monument, you just get a commanding view of the lough from every direction, and you can see the lough then in the context of Northern Ireland, because you can see the Mourne Mountains in the far distance, and it's just a spectacular location. We're always rushing from A to B, and we're always sort of in a rush to get somewhere, and we never really take time to stop and look and think. And hopefully some of my pictures maybe make people think, well, yeah, you know, it's not such a bad place where we live. It's actually a very nice place. I mean, there's evenings when you come down here and Belfast is about 3 miles up the road and you could be a million miles away from it. It's lovely.
I'm heading eastwards from Hollywood now on the coastal path, one of the most beautiful walks on the whole lough. From here, you can dander right round to Bangor and on to Groomsport. And down at Kiltraw is a man who loves to get away from it all in the lough, Tyrone Curry. He tried a few jobs before settling on canoe building. Now, what is the difference between a canoe and a kayak?
A canoe, or Canadian canoe, or an open canoe is like the Native Americans would have paddled originally from birch bark. So you kind of sit on top of it. It's an open boat. And a kayak would be an Eskimo type boat, a closed cockpit boat.
Tell me this, how did you get into this in the first place?
Well, I started off in computing. I was working over in London, and I decided I really wanted to do something that I was more passionate about in life. So I left that and started up a business building wooden canoes. I'd been building the canoes for about 2 or 3 years, and I was looking, the wooden canoe market was very small. I probably had about 80% of the UK market, and I was looking to expand the business. So one thing I looked at was sailing, so I took up canoe sailing, which is basically taking a standard Canadian canoe and putting a very simple rig in it and sailing it. So I started doing that, and then there was a group over in England racing in the Lake District in Lough, and I used to go over and race over there. And then I kind of got sucked into it and got a little bit competitive. So I mean, I've been national champion for 3 of the last 5 years, which I think is more of a credit to my boat building skills than my sailing skills.
Now, they're not exactly the fastest boats I've ever seen.
They're not that fast, but you have the experience of going very fast because you're so close to the water. And one of the benefits of them is they're so simple to transport. You can put a boat on the roof of the car, you can launch it anywhere. Some of them you can use for paddling as well, so you've got a very cheap dual-purpose craft.
A few minutes walk from the shore is the Ulster Folk and Transport Museum. I've been here a few times, but never for the annual Cultraw Hill Climb. This event has been running for a century. These were once the grounds of a posh home, and our next stop, another old posh home down near the coast, Lough. It's been welcoming Girl Guides for nearly 60 years.
We have a big camp running this week. We have children from all over Ireland, north and south, and from England as well. So they're all mixing and having a wonderful time.
When did the Girl Guides actually start?
Well, guiding began in 1910 in England. Lord Baden-Powell started it, and then it very quickly spread all around the country and to Ulster.
And how did you get your hands on this place?
Well, Lough was owned by a linen company owner before we had it, and he was called Campbell. I think he'd originally come from Scotland, and he also started Campbell College. And then we bought it in 1947, and people come for trainings. Guiders come for trainings from all over Ulster to Lough, stay for weekend trainings or day trainings, and they come and are trained in all the different rules and regulations of guiding.
We did jamborees, which were like beach things, and we made a big banner where everybody had to draw themselves and then write their names underneath them. We did shell collecting. We were throwing sponges at each other as well, which was actually my favourite bit of the jamboree, and then we went swimming. And we made little boxes, and I'm going to do collector's badge. I might do collector's badge as one of the ones that I can send off to people so that I can get another badge on my sash.
Guiding offers the young people today all sorts of things. It teaches them team building things. It also teaches them leadership because we work in small groups and patrols, and they get all sorts of trips abroad, and because we're a worldwide organisation, they have great opportunities, great international opportunities. We do trips abroad, we do community work, we do all sorts of things, so they are trained to be really good citizens.
Now, they say this programme's all about discovering new things. Well, today we're in a place that we didn't know existed with a bunch of people that we definitely didn't know existed. I can hardly carry the weight of myself, never mind this. Grey Point Fort is my next stopping point along the coast, just before Helens Bay. It was a coastal battery protecting the mouth of the loch during both World Wars. Today, members of the Military Vehicle Club of Ireland are showing off their hardware. They reckon there's 1,000 collectors like them throughout Ireland. Terry, it's rather shocking this for anybody like me that comes down. We drive in Helens Bay, then you start seeing all these military vehicles here.
Just a wee display we do. We own the stuff, like to get a chance to get out people to see it.
I'm just looking around at the guns here. Tell me they're not real.
They're not. They're not real. Some are in plastic. Just reproductions or deactivated weapons.
There's a sight when you look through people at a distance. You can pick them off.
What's the buzz out of this, Terry?
It's something I've always just been into. I've been into history since school, and you find you can own it. And why not?
And what, for example, just talk me through today what you would be doing. Obviously we can see the kit here.
That's just for people to see. That's it. If they want to come down, have a look at it, play with it, see the difference in the British and American stuff, the older, the modern.
You know as well as I do that some people watching this will be saying, hold on a second here, grown men in army uniform walking around with their guns and their rifles. Nutcases.
That has been said. Frequently. It's just what we're into. We don't go out and run around fields or live in holes in the ground. It's just collecting. It's not playing at soldiers.
It fills the house, it overflows into the garage, it's in friends' houses, it's got a stage where it's everywhere. And I think I'll be disowned at some stage if we don't stop collecting. In my young days, there was a gas mask lying in everybody's house, but now youngsters have never seen one, only on TV. So to actually give them a steel helmet or a gas mask and let them handle it, they've never felt one before, never seen one up close. So it's one of those things that you're trying to keep people experience of history being a bit more alive than just reading it in a book or seeing it on TV, that they can actually feel the material. I mean, you see something like this behind us, this Luftwaffe flying suit. Potentially that could have been one of the ones that was worn over Belfast on the air raids. It just brings it a wee bit more alive.
What kind of money would this cost going to buy it now?
That flying suit is now about £260, £280 for the suit and about £200 for the boots.
So you've got to have a couple of quid to be into this then?
No, yes, you do. It's got to that stage. Although don't tell my wife that. She thinks they're all £15.
From Grey Point, it's only a short walk along the seafront at Helens Bay to Crawfordsburn Country Park, and today's a special family day.
Now just stop here. There's a meadow brown perched. And see, right, just don't everybody go too close. That is one of the most common butterflies in Ireland. And it's found in grassland, and it lays its eggs on grasses. It's good that people enjoy a cup of coffee and enjoy the facilities here in the building and then go down to the beach. That's wonderful. But there's so much more to Crawfordsburn Country Park in terms of about 100 acres of woodland, loads of meadows full of wildlife. We have walks all along the coast. You can walk from here to Hollywood, or you can walk from here to Bangor, and you have Grey Point Fort, in this historic 20th century fort overlooking Belfast Lough.
Very much a family atmosphere around here today, young and old, all smiling so far.
Yes, well, it certainly it's good that people can come with free access to a park and enjoy a little bit of nature. Right, let's see if somebody's caught a grasshopper. It's part of the mission of Environment and Heritage Service to provide access to the countryside, and hopefully that when people come to the park they get some kind of natural inspiration to help the environment that they've gained an appreciation for. Right. You did well to spot it because it's just the same colour as the grass. Yeah. That's called camouflage.
Yeah. Now what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is a hunting sequence in which there's trees involved. I've got a beautiful female tree over here and a very, very attractive male tree over there. There goes my reputation downhill in a few seconds.
Birds of prey since I seen them at Shane's Castle and being flown in the late 80s. I watched a peregrine going over my head, being flown by Lenny Durham-Walters. And I says, yes.
Bird comes along.
And then the long process of going up that long ladder actually begun. And it wasn't until 2002 that I got my first true peregrine to train.
So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, do you think the two trees should be closer together?
No. No. This bird has been captive bred. It's not wild bred owl.
And he's just 7 weeks old. That's
7 weeks old.
in itself.
Yeah, he's just 7 weeks old. We're just beginning his training process. So here at Crawfordsburn Country Park, what we were doing, Stephen, is just introducing him to young people, the noise, traffic. There's sounds that you and I can pick out. Isles are different. They hear things that you and I can't hear as well. And this is the difficulty, and that's what Alba's doing. He's listening all around, trying to pick out the sound. So he wants to know what sound, for example, is okay. What sound is totally dangerous.
Now!
Closest I've ever been to a woman.
Okay, James.
Oh! You're very proud of what you do, aren't you?
I love every minute of it. It's just getting better and better.
You could drive a truck through that. Closer. That's better. Now, let's see. Well, Jamie,
there's not enough room. There's not enough room for that.
And I'm getting better and better. At the end of my year, I say, right, let's start all over again. Let's make it better. Let's go up that ladder. Let's push it. Let's make environmental education more educational, but also more entertaining for the pupils.
Let's see, will he do it one more time? Jamie! Oh! Ladies and gentlemen, Jamie Harshawk, well done. Brilliant.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming to Crawfordsburn Country Park.
There's obviously a slight eccentricity there. That's all right when you're sitting here watching, but when you've got that thing in his hand and he's wanting to fly through so close, you can actually feel the feathers just. Ooh. Wow. You're training. Is it Alba in your home at this moment, or there's a bird in your home? What's that?
There is a bird, yes, in my home. He's in my office.
Don't say it as if you're proud of it. This thing's living in your house.
Oh yes, very much so. Very much so.
But who's in the house with you? You, the bird?
You, me, the bird, Mum and Dad.
Now was your parents thinking, he's finally bringing a bird home?
Indeed, indeed. I know. Just a bit like yours.
Well, that's enough of the birds and bees for now, but there's more next week when I meet the Birdman of Bangor Marina. I also fall foul of a pistol-packing mama. Haven't slept since that. Relive my childhood playing in rock pools and bring my journey to an end on the Copeland Islands. It's probably where man first set foot in Ireland, and now more than half the population lives near its shores. Welcome to Belfast Lough. For the past 6 weeks I've been travelling right around Belfast Lough from my starting point at Blackhead Lighthouse. This week I make the final leg of my journey through Bangor, round the shore to Grimsport, then on to Donaghadee and finally out to the Copeland Islands. Along the way I meet the Birdman of Bangor Marina, face a 6-gun toting cowgirl, relive the golden age of steam and find out what a gaff rig is all about. There always seems to be so much going on around Bangor. I can still remember the excitement I felt coming here as a kid. The loch looks pretty much the same as it did then, but what a change to the harbour. It now boasts one of the finest marinas in the land. And here's the man who knows the secrets of the marina's guillemots, those little blackbirds you see on the rocks and around the harbour.
There we are, my beauty. There we are. Not particularly happy, but there we are. When we started the work some years ago, we came across a bird which was originally ringed on the Copelands, and that was 18 years of age, and that was pretty good going. I think the oldest in the British and Irish ringing scheme is 23 years. So put a wee bag over its head, it'll stop it moving around so much and just lay there quite happily. Within Bangor, I probably ring about a third of the black guillemots which are ringed in Britain and Ireland, something of that order. That's nice and secure, nicely joined.
Julian's actually a lecturer at Stranmillis College. This is just his private passion, but the data he records is crucial to understanding everything from how the birds live to global warming.
They started to lay their eggs 20 years ago in the first half of May, but in recent times it's been getting earlier and earlier. So when people say, oh, global warming, it's not happening, it's happening in our very lifetimes at the moment. We can see it happening. There we are. There we go. Daylight. Hello. And people don't associate them being rare because they can walk onto the North Pier on a May morning or a June morning. They can dander along, they can see these birds, they can get within 2 meters of them on the pier. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. You get these wonderful close views.
The marina itself is pretty impressive. Wouldn't you like to have a view from your office like Andrew Jagger's?
We've got a 500 berth marina essentially here, which is up until recently was the largest in Ireland. I think Dunleary's probably overtaken us in that respect. And each year we'd get about 2,000 visiting boats from all over the world, in fact. In Australia, Vancouver, America. And in recent years we've noticed a trend of getting quite a lot of visitors from Scandinavia who apparently on their way back from the Caribbean, stopping off at Bangor, going through the Caledonian Canal and across the North Sea back home.
So what sort of money's involved in the boats here?
Well, there are boats that are approaching £1 million that come in here, and boats that are as low as a few £1,000s in value. We did tot up the insured value of all the boats in the marina a couple of years ago, and it came to, well, a lot of millions, and it was quite an impressive figure when we looked at it at the end of the day.
One of the most enjoyable ways to travel this stretch of coastline into Bangor is by steam train, the way most people arrived in Bangor's heyday as a holiday retreat.
I just love steam, I love trains. I think they're fantastic, I should have never done away with them. Should have kept the railways open.
Originally Banbridge, Northern Ireland, have moved to Pennsylvania, USA. My father's always been a very avid train buff, and we've continued that through the generations, and we now have a young fella at 2, a young fella at 5, and they're very much involved in the train life.
I think it brings back memories of marvellous days. The trains ran on time, they were comfortable, and they ran faster than today. I'd like to stand on top of a bridge and watch it go past with a black face after.
Now, I don't know if the famous author C.S. Lewis came here by train, but he did know the area very well. In fact, he spent his honeymoon down the road in the Crawfordsburn Inn. Well, this bench here in the grounds of Bangor Castle was dedicated to him after he died in 1963. But of course, Bangor's literary history goes way back into the dim and distant past.
Some historians would say that it has the longest literary history of anywhere in Ireland. But we know it does go back to the middle of the 6th century when Bangor was founded. The major work that came from the abbey was, of course, the Antiphonary of Bangor, which was a magnificent book of hymns and psalms and prayers, some absolutely beautiful Latin poetry.
Bangor's still celebrating all things literary these days with its annual literary festival Aspects, which has attracted some pretty big names.
We've had Nobel winners, Whitbread winners, Booker Prize winners, Pulitzer Prize winners. Virtually every award, literary award of any major note, there's been somebody here who's had one.
Even 007 himself has a connection here. Apparently Bond was based on a former occupant of Bangor Castle who made a big impression on author Ian Fleming. This was the home of the Wards and Binghams, the most famous being romantic novelist Charlotte Bingham.
John Bingham, Charlotte's father, was in intelligence during the war, and it is rumoured that he was the model for one of Ian Fleming's well-known characters.
Sadly, there's no Aston Martin here. However, there is something eye-catching about vintage, veteran and classic cars. And Bangor hosts an annual event which attracts them from all arts and parts. Well, for my money, the only thing more beautiful than a classic car is a classic boat. And they too are celebrated in Bangor every year with a week-long festival run by a bunch of old gaffers.
The actual old gaffer boats themselves are basically a boat with a four-sided mainsail. The mast comes up like so, and a gaff would come out and the sail would hang down from that. And you hoist up the gaff and that's your mainsail. My own boat was built in 1939 and launched in 1945. And I bought her in 1996. She wasn't as the condition she was in now. But I bought her anyway and we started and we cleaned her up, we painted her, we bought new sails for her, we put a new engine in it, and we've sailed it since 1996. And just something that appeals to me about wooden boats. I just like the whole ethos. There's a few extra ropes to do and the old traditional things and the old skills.
One of the visitors this year is Alex McRae from Scotland, bringing his boat back to where it was built.
The interior and the exterior of the Crown Bar were designed by Edward J. Byrne, the architect and designer of the boat, as one of his sort of first major projects. He did an awful lot of work for the Catholic Church, and one of the things that he did locally here in Bangor was round in Ballyholme Bay. He did the Chapel of Ease. She was built by Paddy McEwen, who was a well-known, respected boat builder in Whitla Street in the centre of Belfast, down by York Street Docks. And I spent 9 years restoring it. And 10 years in the water now, and I'm just gradually getting the thing up. You do a bit more every year. You never finish in wooden boats. A wooden boat is something it's alive. It's not a bit of Tupperware. It's all about sort of the continuity. You're not actually keeping the original as it was. It's not a museum piece. If it was a museum piece, it would be stuck in a museum and it would be bloody boring.
It's only a short hop from Bangor over to the Scottish coastline, so I suppose Bangor Castle's as good a place as any to have the annual Pipe Band Championships. The local association started with 10 bands in 1950. Now it is 93. There's always plenty of activity on the water around here. Whatever kind of water sports tickle your fancy, dragon boats can certainly be a bit of fun. But wait for these things, Zapcats. Now, what a really exciting way to travel. In fact, these boys are actually racing over to Scotland today. And on the Lough, we also have the Laser Radial European Championships.
So far we've been kind of unlucky because there hasn't been much wind. In fact, the last 2 days I never saw Belfast Lough so calm. You could look right across the White Head and there wasn't a single ripple on the water. But today we have some breeze, so hopefully it'll be a bit better.
It's pretty amazing here. People came from all over the world, even that it's a European championship. And it's an open European, so there are sailors from Australia, from United States, and I think we're quite lucky to have 21 nations here. We got thousands of sailors sailing in that dinghy, and people like to sail it, so why not?
The Radial is the main development class for countries around the world's Olympic programme. So most of these guys, well, a fair percentage of these guys will end up in the Olympics perhaps in 2012 or 2016.
The best results I got on Laser Radial, and I am 5 times world champion, and last year in Garda Lake I got a European title, and this year I'm trying to defend this title on the Lough of Belfast. I can't say a bad word about anything. Everything is very good, very nice. People are amazing, and the atmosphere over here with the Mother Nature create a wonderful time.
I'll go first, Coast Guard. This is a sea spray. Yes, what
Patrick, 3 persons on board. We're bound for Bangor, Northern Ireland. Could you give me a weather report, please? Over.
Yacht Sea Spray, this is Belfast Coast Guard, Roger, stand by.
The whole area right round, you can see where...
They may be called the Belfast Coast Guards, but they're actually based in Bangor Marina. From their headquarters, they keep a watchful eye on all the activity in the loch, right out into the Irish Sea, and even the Atlantic.
Well, we are the people responsible for maritime search and rescue coordination. That sounds rather grand, so it can be everything from a large cruise liner or a tanker right down to an airbed or a child missing on the beach.
Do you require the outlook, over?
There's a very distinctive note within this ops room when a 999 call comes in.
Coast Guard emergency.
And people obviously drop what they're doing and give it full concentration. Likewise, when a Mayday comes in, there would be various stations that would be listening to it. So we have to come up with who's going to be the coordinator.
Listen on channel 73. Channel 73. This is Belfast Coast Guard.
Time is critical, obviously, in this operation. Just bring it home to us about just how time critical the whole thing is.
Time is vital. We would much rather be advised early on. You can always cancel a Mayday or cancel a 999 call, but it requires time to cover ground. And that early time is entirely in the control of the casualty. And it's something, if it's lost, that we can never make up.
Of course, the Coast Guards work closely with the lifeboat men, and the RNLI team responsible for the whole loch is based in Bangor.
Our average call-outs in the year would be somewhere in the region of about 40, which places us probably at about the busiest boat here in Ireland. Our current boat is crewed by a 3-man crew, all voluntary. They're drawn from a total team of 20 that we have here in Bangor. That's 20 volunteers. And generally we launch here in Bangor on average 4 minutes from the time that our pager goes off, which is quite quick considering the guy could be serving a customer in his shop and has to come down, get into the gear and onto the lifeboat on the way out to do whatever is tasked of us. They drop anything and everything when that pager goes off. They could be sitting having a romantic meal with their wife in the restaurant, and if that pager goes off, Mrs. Lifeboat Man, for want of a better term, will be sitting eating the meal on her own and having to pay the bill. But thankfully, the family atmosphere that we have in the station allows that, and the wives and families of our crew are equally as important to us as the crew themselves. There's nothing more heartwarming than, for example, picking up to a family cruiser that's just sinking and you pull the family out of it, and to watch the children's faces as they realise their rescuers have come. It's a heartwarming experience, and one that every member of the crew obviously enjoy, and that's probably one of the reasons that gives them the commitment that they have to do the job.
Well, I have a restaurant in the town here in High Street, so I'm quite close to the station, and being self-employed doesn't cause a big problem, but at times Saturday nights can be a bit hectic on it, but we always seem to make it. Well, I sort of treat it as a bit of passion and a love for it and a hobby. I don't have any other major hobbies, can't afford the golf club, so this is the main one. I'm involved now 20 years in the lifeboat, so I have been involved in a lot of incidents, and you get good satisfaction out of the job.
Now, can you even imagine being out in this kind of weather? And this isn't a lifeboat, it's the Ken Vickers, the vessel of the Marine Protection Agency. It covers the loch and further afield, making sure fishermen keep within the law.
We aim to do about 90 days at sea a year and inspect 120 vessels over 10 metres, that's boarding and full inspection, and inspects about some 150 small boats as well.
This is the vessel's main radar. Green square indicates all the target's information down here, so we can see it's doing 17 knots. The radar is very good for fish protection work and search and rescue work. The plotter and the radar and the echo sound are all interlinked together, along with differential GPS, which there's 2 in the vessel.
We respect fishermen. They work hard, they have a very dangerous occupation. They're trying to make a living, and we respect them and the job that they do. We're not out there to punish fishermen, we're there to help them and ensure the long-term viability of the fishing industry.
Right, this is a vessel's chart plotter. The red lines actually show our previous tracks. When we're out water sampling, the red X is indicating different stations given to us by our scientific division where we'll stop and take water samples and bottom samples.
We have actually a prohibition on vessels over 40 feet fishing the loch, but there is pot fishing by smaller vessels, lobsters, crabs and whelks on both sides of the loch. And at the mouth of the loch there's trawling for whitefish and dredging for scallops. So there is a fair amount of activity. And we also have mussel cultivation areas in Belfast Lough, and we keep an eye on that as well. I have a small boat that me and my young fella go out fishing and angling just off Grimsport and Bangor here for a few mackerel. It's nice to be on the other side of the equation at times, and instead of chasing fishermen, I'm one fisherman myself, but I always make sure that I don't break any regulations when I'm fishing.
The proper aspect of it. We also work sometimes with the Coast Guards and things on oil response to oil pollution and things like that.
Now a lesson on another of the Lough secrets, the Maritime Volunteer Service. They have 2 boats in the Lough and meet each week in Bangor and Carrickfergus.
Well, the MVS started in 1994, really from the disbandment of the Royal Naval Auxiliary Service. At the end of the Cold War, there was no real need for such a service. But it was felt that this was a loss of maritime skills, 2,500 people. The RNR were severely cut back at that time. The merchant navy, the fishing fleets have all been decimated. We're an island nation, we need maritime skills, so that's how the organisation was set up.
This is Belfast, Roger, many thanks.
Port 5, right on. Very good. So how did you get into this, Charles?
I was an electrical engineer, but my sea background was with the Royal Naval Auxiliary Service. So I had 6 years background in the sea, and since then we've done quite a bit of training with the Maritime Volunteer Service. We start off with a foundation course which covers the environment, the environmental side, down to more sophisticated navigation. We cover marine engineering and shore support side, which looks after the environmental side for oil pollution.
Just round the coast now to Ballyholme, and this is a sight that takes me back. I used to love playing in rock pools, but there's a serious side to it as well for these kids from Ballyholme Primary School.
Bright yellow. We're concerned about all sorts of wildlife and mainly about the places that our birds are feeding. So we've invited them along to learn a little bit more about the rock pools and have a bit of fun too. How else do they hide? How else do you think creatures try to hide in the rock pools? Yes.
They bury themselves down in the muck.
So what will the kids be doing here today?
A group's going to be in the rock pools collecting. We've another group that's going to be sketching the things they find, and another group are going on a scavenger hunt to see what they can find along the shoreline. Do you remember what these are? The blue shells? We're walking over mussel shells, a bed of mussel shells, and if you're in your bare feet, they would be quite prickly, quite sore, and little barnacles in beside. And this is the food of our oyster catchers, so the black and white oyster catchers that you would see on the shore. It's such a wonderful place to get very close to nature, and we brought the children down here today just to show them that on their doorstep are fantastic, exciting rock pools. And I think the great thing about rock pools is you go in, you're never sure what you're going to find, so you'll turn over a rock, you haven't a clue what's going to be there, and we want that to remain. We don't want them ever to lose the magic of being able to explore in rock pools. So we're hoping that that's going to last for years, and with the added protection, that should be forever.
Next stop on my journey, Grimsport. It's easy to bypass but well worth seeing, particularly at this time of year when the Eagle Wing Festival's taking place, commemorating a ship of that name which set sail for America 400 years ago with a bunch of persecuted Presbyterians.
Reverend Blair, who was being persecuted by Charles I, said, "I've had enough of this and I'm heading off." And he came to this little bay here and built a boat to fit 136 people in. And he took off to America. Now the amazing thing about this is that the Mayflower was in 1620 and our boat was the second boat after the Mayflower. But they hit tremendous seas and they could actually see the coast of Greenland and they were beaten back by the waves. We would have made such a difference in America if that had succeeded. But we did, because it's the journey that counts.
And for those people that are maybe looking upon this for the first time, how would you describe it to them? What's at its core?
Well, its core is a good time, to be quite honest. It really is to have a good time, come down to see this town, this village of Groomsport is beautiful. But when they come down here to see this, the family atmosphere, I think, is it any wonder we're being targeted by the developers for flats and apartments? You know, people want to live here.
Don't start about the developers targeting places. We get a whole new program out of that.
I know, I tell you, I could fill it for you, you know. But it's just a beautiful place, and it's a good value as to what we're actually doing down here. It really is.
So the line dancing was very popular there today.
I know. They wanted me to do that, but I need to lose a couple of stone to make it look good, you know.
You and me both.
I'm saying nothing.
Well, the American Connection is also an excuse for Western fans to come out in their droves, like David McCready from the Outlaws Country Music Club.
Be all right. But we have an accident covered.
They're going to have you for this?
We have an accident covered, but just in case.
I caught the bug because of the western end of things, not only the country thing, but the western end of things.
You're a very cool customer. I was saying to the boys there, you know, there's a wee bit of a Sean Connery look to you there, you know? Are you up there performing against the crowd, in front of the crowd? Is that part of the buzz?
I suppose it's part of the buzz, but it's also fun. There's an element of fun, and not only fun, but fund.
And every single penny you get, it goes back into the charities, doesn't it?
At the end of our club year, everything that we have in our coffers goes to a nominated charity.
I was listening to lots of the different names there. Where do they come from?
The names are drawn from either Western movies or country and Western music.
And you're what then? Go ahead.
The Renegade, by name and by nature. I think my name was chosen not by accident. A bit of a rebel in me somewhere.
And what others do you have in the club?
We have the Undertaker, who comes complete with top hat.
Get it over with!
I'm going to have a go at this.
We're having you for this.
We're going to have one of the ladies have a go at it.
With several ladies amongst the club. Savannah, my partner, Gypsy Rose.
I was watching Savannah though, she's one sharp shooter, boy.
That's why I do what I'm told.
When you're ready.
Thank you very much.
And winner Savannah and our celebrities.
Thanks a lot.
What about doing the applause for Stephen?
Thanks a lot. It's all right watching those guys.
We'll be back with you shortly.
It really is okay watching those guys, but when that balloon is right there between your legs, and then they put the hat below you, and you have this tendency just to look below to see if anything's dropped out, but it didn't. No.
Be very careful when you undo your trousers tonight.
Toilets are around the corner.
Shut up, you.
Didn't think I'd get away from those crazies alive. Well, now to my final port of call on my travels round the loch, the Copeland Islands, with their lighthouse guarding the southern entrance to the loch. And the secret here, for those of you who don't know, the Copeland Bird Observatory.
I started here on the 31st of March 1954 at the age of 9. My dad brought me out. He was the first treasurer of the organisation, and by 1959 I was really qualified as a bird ringer, and I've been coming here ever since. My son says 5 years in total when you add it all together.
Have you had any special birds visiting the Copelands?
We've had yellow-browed warblers on a number of occasions from Siberia, and perhaps the rarest bird of the whole lot has been a white thrush, also from Siberia. It was the first one recorded in Ireland for 108 years. I think there were 1,500 people came out to the island to see it. So it was quite a remarkable event.
Among the birds ringed here are Manx shearwaters, one of which is quite a distinguished old gentleman.
And the oldest one is one from this island. It was ringed in 1953, and it was handled by us again here in 2003. And we think it's still alive and well and should be for many more years to come with any luck. It was breeding here last year. Very old bird, obviously.
Well, it's just as well that bird doesn't live in the Antipodes.
They're actually very tasty. The Australians eat 1 million of them a year.
Well, Neville loves this place so much, he even spent his honeymoon here.
I stayed here for 2 weeks and I just did not want to go home. You know, the two homes I've got an equal pull on me now.
Neville, is this private or can anyone come out to the Copelands?
We have day trips in May and June and occasionally even September and October. And everybody that comes seems to enjoy it.
Well, it's hard to leave the Copeland Islands. It's really hard to believe that's it. My journey around Belfast Lough is over. I've certainly enjoyed uncovering lots of the secrets of Belfast Lough, and I hope you have too. Now, which way to Belfast? I'm definitely not cut out for this. And I'm going the wrong way already. Goodness sake.